For 60 years, Hidden Peak watched every attempt fail, storms, illness, and retreat. Then, in 1958, a small team stepped onto its frozen slopes, chasing the last unclimbed giant of the Karakoram.
Hey, glad you're here. Welcome to the Himalayan Journals. Here on this channel, we bring to you real stories from century old field notes. We try to keep it simple and calm here. Think of it as a documented history of the Himalayas from the early 1900s, covering stories of indigenous wisdom, epic expeditions, and groundbreaking science, passed on just as they were recorded. Subscribe, zone out, binge.
In 1892, Lord Conway first saw the mountain he called Hidden Peak. Later, in 1909, the Duke of Abruzzi's expedition mapped and photographed the Baltoro region, recording not only K2, but the Gasherbrum as well. Two serious attempts followed. In 1934, an international expedition led by G. O. Durenforth reached about 20,670 feet on the southeast ridge before bad weather forced retreat. In 1936, a French team climbed the south ridge to roughly 23,000 feet below the Great Southern Shoulder, only to abandon the attempt after 10 days of snowstorms. In November 1957, permission was granted by the Pakistan government for an American expedition to attempt Gasherbrum 1, the last unclimbed 8,000-meter peak in the Karakoram. By February 1958, the team was complete, led by Pete Schoening, with Nick Clinch, Bob Swift, Andy Kaufman, Tom Nevison, Dick Irvin, Gil Roberts, and two Pakistani Army officers, Captains Mohammed Akram and S.T.H. Rizvi. After months of hurried organization, international shipments of equipment, and instruction in the use of oxygen, the party assembled in Pakistan. On May 16th, all members were reunited in Rawalpindi, and soon afterward flew to Skardu. From Skardu, they packed more than 3.5 tons of equipment, hired porters, and set out toward Hidden Peak on May 21st. Illness and injuries troubled the approach. Swift carried a broken hand in a cast, and Akram fell ill and had to follow later. The march up the Baltoro was slow and difficult, with snow, softened glacier surfaces, and exhausted porters. By June 10th, the expedition established base camp at 16,800 feet on the Abruzzi Glacier, below the southeast ridge. The climbers debated possible routes. The west face appeared threatened by ice cliffs, the south ridge was judged too difficult, and the Glacier du Milieu was swept by avalanches. The choice narrowed to the north ridge or the southeast ridge, known as the Roque Arete. After reconnaissance and debate, the team selected the southeast ridge by a narrow vote. On June 13th, Camp 1 was established at 18,500 feet. Fixed ropes were placed, and Camp 2 was reached at 21,000 feet after difficult rock and snow climbing. Progress slowed due to storms, illness, and dangerous corniced ridges. Several members were forced to descend when pneumonia and bronchitis appeared. Despite this, loads were ferried upward, and Camp 3 was established at 22,000 feet by June 26th. By late June, worsening glacier conditions forced the relocation of base camp. On June 28th, the climbers gathered at Camp 3 for a final decision. Fearing storms on the plateau, they chose a rapid advance using oxygen. A secret ballot selected Schoening and Kaufman as the first assault team, supported by Swift, Rizvi, and Nevison. Camp 4 was established at about 22,500 feet on the edge of the plateau, though illness again reduced the team. Early July brought 3 days of poor weather. When the skies finally cleared, the Camp 4 party pushed onto the plateau on July 4th, sinking deeply into unconsolidated snow. Camp 5 was pitched above 23,500 feet, still miles from the summit. At 5 a.m. the next day, Schoening and Kaufman left Camp 5 for the summit, using oxygen and improvised snowshoes. They reached the col between the south summit and the main massif by 9 a.m., then crossed the upper snow bowl. Late in the afternoon, they climbed a couloir to the ridge and traversed left. At 3 p.m., they stood on the summit of Gasherbrum 1. They remained for about an hour before beginning a long descent, reaching their tent at 9 p.m. Clouds soon covered the mountain, and all further attempts were abandoned to avoid the risk of entrapment. By July 7th, the expedition was descending, and on July 9th, they left base camp. On July 21st, exactly 2 months after departure, the team returned to Skardu. Though recorded as an American ascent, the climbers knew the achievement belonged to many. Support from mountaineers in Pakistan, America, England, France, and Switzerland had made the climb possible. Gasherbrum 1 had been climbed not by nations, but by mountaineers, and the summit belonged to all of them.